when you go live in a Facebook, a YouTube video, they give you the option to include a thumbnail. So which I think is a picture that you see when you click on YouTube. And the picture that I picked was me looking like very happy like this. I need to balance out what I'm going to say with some joy, because we should always have joy in our hearts. But what I'm going to say is pretty depressing. It comes from our Parsha. If you look at the Parshas of the past weeks, of the coming weeks, absolutely the most depressing material in the entire Torah. There is so much sin, and most of all, so much death, so much reference to death. I'm not going to go back even that far, but just going back to last week's Parsha with Korach, the rebellion against Moshe. Korach gets everyone angry and thinks that they can overthrow Moshe and Aaron's authority. The ground swallows up and all these people die. The people that were doing the fire pans get burnt up. There's a plague. Then people complain against Moshe and said, "You killed all these people, Moshe. What were you doing?" And there's another death the next day. It's really pretty ugly. And then right after that, we get into some halacha. It talks about the duty of the Kohanim, and it says that v'azar hakarev yumas, anybody who's not a Kohen who comes near to the mizbeach or to the service of God will die. And it goes on in the parsha, ends lo techalu v'lo tamusu. Right, it's talking about eating the truma, eating the gifts to the Leviim, and it just says, you have to respect the Mishkan or else you'll die. If you are careful, then you won't die. Well, this death. Then it doesn't get any better. In this week's Parsha, Chukas, Miriam passes away. By the way, it's something that I didn't even mention. I should. This is the jump of 38 years right between these two Parshas. And so we hear the last words that the generation that left Egypt, that amazing generation that saw the splitting of the sea, the last words they ever say. You want to hear the last words that's recorded from that generation? Vayomer b'nei Yisrael Moshe le'emor, hein gavanu avadnu, kulanu avadnu. The children of Israel said to Moshe, saying, "We're going to die. We're all dying. We're lost. All of us are lost. Kol hakarev al mishkan Adonai yamus ha'im tamnu ligvoa." Anybody who comes near to Hashem's temple, to the Mishkan, dies. Are we ever going to stop dying? Boom. That's the last thing we hear out of the generation that left Egypt. It's depressing as anything. It's so terrible. It's so sad. They lost hope, completely lost hope, for good reason. We skip ahead 38 years, and what happens? Miriam passes away. And then Moshe, instead of talking to a rock to make a Kiddush Hashem, he strikes the rock, and Hashem says, "You and Aaron are going to pass away. You're not entering the land." And then there's complaining and another plague, and more people die. I'm telling you, it's unbelievable. Right in the middle of all this, I don't think it's any mistake that we are told the really what Chukas is known for, which is the mitzvah of the para aduma, the red heifer. This is a mitzvah about purification from death. It does not belong here. It really belongs in Vayikra, in Leviticus. But it's here, and I don't think it's any mistake, and I think it's so clear that we have death over here, death over there, and in the middle, it's time to talk about the purification ritual, because when we come in contact with death, we become impure. It's on us. It sinks us. How do we peel that off? So they have this whole intense ritual to make this water for sprinkling it includes the ashes of this perfectly red heifer, and they sprinkle on the third day, and they sprinkle on the seventh day, and they go to the mikvah, and when they come out, they are purified from the death, from the contact with death. I think this really can have a impact on the way we think about mass shootings. We had another one this week in Highland Park, right next to where I grew up in Northbrook, Illinois. They were our rival in football, Highland Park, besides Glenbrook South, Glenview. And a lot of friends from there. Half of my class in 8th grade at Solomon Schechter was from Highland Park. It's just a really, really horrible thing. But what were we expecting? It's been going on every month, every 2 months. Guess what? It's going to happen again and again. What's going to change? What's changed? We have impurity of death all over us. And so we try to find a way to purify ourselves. And thus far, the ritual that we keep on repeating and repeating is to talk about it from our political perspective. Oh, you know, the Second Amendment, we need to protect it, and we need to make sure that people have mental health issues addressed. And oh, we need to get rid of the PR AK-47s or the whatever, the 16s, AR-15, and we have to, you know, make the gun laws tighter. But we're just talking. It's just talk. It's a fake purification ritual that means nothing. Posting on Facebook. Somebody's got to actually do something. The politicians need to be told that it is time. It's not, we don't need to put our views out there, but the politicians need to sit together and do something to make sure that they keep weapons out of the hands of people who would do these things. This is so simple. It's so simple that we cannot keep on going on like this. We can't do a fake ritual of purification, and 2 weeks later, we don't even remember that it happened until it happens again, because that's what we've been doing thus far. It's time to do something that will change the situation and make sure that, you know, if people need to have weapons, it needs to be people who are vouched very clearly by the proper authorities to be, you know, mature enough and kind enough and normal enough to have weapons. It just needs to be a much more complex process than it is now. And I think, you know, the politicians got to put their politics behind them and sit together and figure something out. The time of fake rituals is over.